Forbidden Siren. Why is it that Japanese horror is often so much scarier than its Western equivalent? Is it the fact that it's usually oozing an ancient tradition mixed with deep psychological twists? Or is it that it's often absolutely batshit insane? Who knows, but Forbidden Siren was released in 2003 for the PS2 and was re-released on the PS4 in 2016. It was a challenging survival horror game that started with an earthquake tearing apart a small religious village called Hanuda, unleashing a deadly red sea that turned people into shiboto, which translated literally means corpse people. The game told the tale of 10 survivors of this disaster. It switched mission to mission between each of their stories as they struggled to find out the classic what happened here, as well as try to make their escape. The constant switching between characters did at first make things a little confusing, as this was a game that never liked to clearly describe what was going on and had a very steep learning curve. If the character faces look a little weird to you, then that's because rather than using traditional facial animation techniques, these heads were made by taking actors' photographs from 8 different angles and then having these photos plastered onto the characters in the game. While it was a pretty ambitious idea, the results are scary to say the least. But when it comes to presentation, the faces are nothing. Wait until you hear the voice acting.
I told you to wait in the car.
But what's happening? What is this? Why is this happening?
Wow, just wow. Obviously it was originally Japanese, but for the English version, all the voices were replaced with these terrible, hilarious British accents.
Oh my god. What do I do? Call an ambulance?
We're talking worse than Castlevania Symphony of the Night here.
What is a man? A miserable little pile of secrets!
Please shut up.
The game was broken up into short, self-contained stages, each coming with their own clearly defined objectives. They were like little stealthy puzzles, usually involving getting from one place to another. You would have to set up traps in order to cause a distraction, allowing you to sneak your way past the wandering shiboto. Getting spotted usually meant a quick and painful death, but when you were armed, generally you were okay, especially on the levels when you got to play as the old guy with the sniper. The enemies did go down easy enough, but unfortunately, like the red skeletons from Castlevania, they didn't stay down for long, maybe 2 minutes at best. When it came to the enemy snipers though, forget it. If they spotted you, you were as good as dead. Some of the levels were incredibly dark and had a great creepy atmosphere, but this also made it impossible to know where you were going. Most of the time you did have a flashlight, but using it would throw stealth out the window, so you were stuck with not knowing where you were, with no map or compass to help you out. It was very easy to get lost. But there was one feature that could help, one of the coolest ideas that this game brought to the table: sight jacking. Essentially, this allowed you to see from the perspective of others. Hitting L2 and then rolling the analog stick about would tune in like a radio to the enemy's sight. They could then be mapped to the face buttons for quick access and allow you to get a better bearing of your location, as well as give clues as to what weapons the enemy were holding. Combining sight jacking with a lot of patience meant that eventually you could piece the surroundings together and formulate a plan as to the best time to make your move. But unfortunately there was one vital flaw that made this game truly frustrating. On many occasions it would make you repeat the same levels because you missed a hidden objective. It worked like this. The game jumped around on a timeline, often looping back on itself whenever a task was missed. This forced the player to repeat the same levels over and over again, only this time with the secondary objective clearly described. It felt like a cheap way of dragging out an already pretty long game. The timeline was a cool concept, showing what each of the 10 characters were doing at any given time, stretching right back to 684 AD, 1976 presumably also AD, and X days ago to be nice and vague. But the looping mechanic ruined this, making playing frustrating, confusing, and often unfair. Forbidden Siren did have some neat ideas, especially the very unique sight jacking mechanic, but at times it was also pretty annoying. It eventually went on to spawn a couple of sequels, as well as a loose film adaptation, and it built a strong community of fans. Anyone wanting an old, challenging, but not perfect Japanese survival horror game may want to check this one out. Thanks for watching. Enjoyed the video? Then why not subscribe? And for more video game reviews, be sure to check out A's Gaming Moments. Thanks for watching.